I mean, to be fair, McDonald's is killing you. Chick-fil-A is fucking killing you. Probably the air we breathe in is killing you. Advil, Tylenol. Everything's really trying to kill you in America. Your ex is probably trying to kill you. Who fucking knows, right? But I'll tell you what's definitely killing you is comparison. Comparison is killing you. It's killing all of us. It's killing everyone. And it never takes a day off. And it's made up. I think that's the worst part. I mean, it's not made up, but it is. But look, I'm going to take you down a journey of why comparison is killing you. And if you follow me on Instagram too, at 2b.ricky, you saw my poll of whether I was going to make an episode on destroying the fact that men claim they're less of parents. I would never claim this, but some men or fathers claim, oh, I'm less of a parent because I don't have maternal instinct. I was going to destroy that theory, but with special guest Rachel on the pod. And Rachel couldn't make the pod because she's a nervous wreck. No, she had to give blood today, and she hates giving blood. So she's like, I can only take so much stress in one day. So we gave her a break, and we're like, all right, so I'm going to do comparison is killing you, which I'm excited about. I love this topic, and I love talking to people about this because when I lay it out for you, the way I'm going to lay it out, you're going to be like, oh my God. Now, if you're listening to this and not watching the video version, watch the video version if you can, or skip ahead when I get to the point where I say, hey, if you're watching the video version, this is going to be most useful to you. But I'll still explain it really well if you're listening. But let's talk about comparison and like where it comes from. So when you're born, when you got a little baby, or when you are a little baby, you don't naturally just look at everything and compare yourself, right? Like you're not butt ass naked thinking, oh my God, I'm the only one butt naked in this room. I must look so stupid. That doesn't happen because comparison's not killing you yet. And obviously, as you grow up, like you got to wear clothes because it's the societal norm. But what I'm getting at is comparison isn't in your every thought, and you're not constantly like grabbing from outside sources. Like, what is this person doing? What is this person doing? What does society want me to do? What does my math teacher want me to do? And basing every single decision you make off of that, off of like the trampoline of everybody else's opinion, right? So when I go to make a decision and my feet are about to hit the ground on this trampoline, I'm like, damn, I'm going to buy this car. Right before my feet hit the ground, I'm thinking about every single response that's going to bounce back on this trampoline. If my mom's going to say I spent my money stupid because she got her car, 5 years after I did at the same point in my life, right? Like she bought her first car when she was 30 and I bought it when I'm 25 or whatever it is, right? You're comparing yourself. Or maybe I'm thinking like, oh, I want to buy this car, but it's not nice enough because Sally fucking Luhu just bought an even nicer car, right? I actually just found myself in this situation. Rachel was showing me someone that bought a brand new car, kind of in the same line of work as me. And I was like, I mean, new cars every day, but I was just like, damn, I like found myself comparing myself for a second. I'm like, fuck, I can't afford that. Like, blah, blah, blah. And it killed me. It killed me for a second. I'm like, damn, why can't I get there? Like, what steps do I need to take to be able to replicate what they just did, but for myself? And then I realized, like, wait, how much of their story is behind a curtain? And like, there's no skeletons in the closet. I mean, there is, but I don't mean it like that. I just mean like how much of what I'm not seeing is there. And this is where you want to be on the video version, or I'm just going to map it out for you. I drew you guys a little picture because I love you, right? And I hope that you can see this. So imagine yourself on the timeline of life. Remember, I got to explain this for everybody not watching. You're on the timeline of life and you're just floating, right? And because you're floating, you can do one of two things. You can start your own path, right? And when you start your own path, you will go in either direction, right? You can start a good path, a path that's going to lead you to a bunch of money and, marriage and all the other things you want in life, or you can maybe go down the wrong path and, you're in prison or something. I don't know. But nonetheless, you're on a path, right? And the good news is no matter what path you're on, you're going to go through hurdles, trials, and tribulations. And then you're also going to go through some wins and some successes, right? But the reason why comparison is killing you is because, again, imagine yourself on this track. You're on a track. You're on a straight 60-yard dash, okay? There's a bunch of hurdles in front of you. But just like Mario Kart, there's a bunch of fucking stars and mystery gift prizes too. The issue is when you're comparing yourself to the runners to your left and right, you lose sight of staying in your lane. And your lane has its own unique prizes and hurdles, okay? So this is you. You're this little dot, or you're this little person at the beginning, the start line, okay? And if you're constantly comparing yourself, and so I look over at lane 1 and I see, God damn, they just bought a new car. But what point of the race did they buy the new car? Because remember, I didn't say we were all equal. I just said we were all on the same track. So I might be looking ahead when they buy that new car, and I'm comparing myself to them on the track right here. Whoop, they just bought a new car. Okay? Now, if I start to pursue their track to get to that same new car, I'm going to miss all the hurdles and all the trials and tribulations on my own track, right? I'm going to miss hurdle here, hurdle here, hurdle here, win here. And that's if I'm going forward, right? But instead of going forward and facing those hurdles, I decided I was going to go find a new car because I'm comparing myself, and it's killing me because I just left that track. You might get the new car. Comparison might drive you to get what you're looking at, right? So if I'm comparing myself to someone that has a super successful podcast, and I put everything I have into this podcast, and I want to have a podcast that has as many downloads and streams as, Joe Rogan, right? So if I dedicate my life to this podcast, I might achieve it just one day. But on the route to get that podcast, on the route to get that new car, how much did you miss? And where do you find yourself now? Because what was on your road might have been the best podcast too. You don't know. You never ran your route. You never stayed committed in your lane, right? You beat yourself up about what you saw on track 1, lane 1. You beat yourself up so much that you only chase that one thing. And whether you achieve it or not, you may or may not, you're still going to be back at the starting point once you get there, because you're not allowed to run track 1. You can run over and see the new car they got and their best podcast, but you're not allowed to run their life, right? They're doing that themselves. So they were focused. They got a new car. And then maybe you're comparing yourself there, and then you hop back on social media and you're like, damn, I want that. And then you see someone just bought a new house. Where is that on their track though? Is that almost at the end of their track? And where are you on your track? Because maybe you've been moving really slow because you're so busy looking over at the other lanes, you're not running as fast as everybody else. So instead, you might have a new house. Your house might be right here, 2 hurdles away, right? But instead of achieving your new house, you've decided to compare yourself to where they're at, getting their new home. And instead of just chasing your win, chasing your finish line, which is going to entail a new house for you too, you've decided to look over at their lane and move slower towards your goal. And I think the problem with this is these lanes, they represent time, okay? Because whether it's a Hawaii trip that you're jealous of, or someone got their degree, or maybe someone got married, and those are all the things that you want to achieve in life. I think the issue that you are really facing, and what you have to realize when you're looking at everyone else's lane and everyone else's track, is these are different spaces on time, right? And so what may be happening in the beginning for someone else, right? They may start with a new house because their dad gave them a hand-me-down. They may start with a new house, and your new house isn't coming until you've saved up for 20 years. But guess what? In their lane, they will face their hurdles, their trials and tribulations. And that's why comparison is killing you, because you're only choosing to compare yourself to the good stuff, right? Comparison, when it's in reference to the bad things, they have a word for that. It's called grateful, right? Because when you start comparing yourself to people that don't have food on their table at night, when you start comparing yourself to, women that are going through pregnancy alone because the baby daddy skips out of town, when you start comparing yourself to your friend who just got cheated on, you're grateful, right? But when you start comparing yourself to things that you want, now you're envious. And comparison's killing you, because what point in their timeline are you looking at? If I go on Instagram and I see someone just bought a house, so my friend Rob just bought a house, and I think, God damn, I want a home too. It's not to say that me comparing myself to him doesn't mean that it's a good goal, but I might say, we're both living in Arizona. We both have one kid. We both work day jobs, and we both do social media on the side, right? Say that's my friend group, but he just bought a house. So I'm comparing myself, but maybe he's a little bit further down his timeline than I am. Maybe Robert's 28 while I'm only 25. So I can give myself a bone and say, well, I got 3 more years. But also, maybe Robert didn't have all the hurdles in the beginning like I did, right? I grew up with a single mom. My mom had my brother when she was 16, me when she was 18, my sister when she was 21. Before she was 22, she had 3 kids, no baby dad involved. I grew up a little bit underprivileged, and then we went through some kind of craziness in our lives. I lost my brother when I was 16. I've had some crazy hurdles. I've had some crazy hurdles. I went to the Army. I've had some crazy things I've had to jump over to get where I'm at today at 25, right? Well, maybe Robert's hurdles are in front of him. And I don't want Robert to have hurdles. I don't want anybody to lose their brother. I don't want anybody to grow up poor. I don't want anybody to have no dad, right? But the reality is, life happens, and life happens to people. And you got to be able to roll with the punches. And Robert might have a few hurdles in front of him that he doesn't see coming. What if you're comparing yourself to someone that bought their house and they're ahead of you on their timeline, and 2 years later their house burns down? Are you jealous now? Don't you wish you had that house? Remember that feeling when you were comparing yourself to them and you thought less of yourself because you were envious of what they had today? Well, 2 years later, their house burns down, and I mean, it's not so great anymore, right? You don't wish you got that house. You don't wish you were in that same spot that they are now. Comparison's gone. Now you feel gratefulness because you're comparing yourself to them. But now you're glad that you're in the shoes you're in, and you're glad you're not in the shoes they're in. And I think it's important to realize that this picky and choosy mindset that you have to only compare yourself and put yourself down when it's, not when it's convenient, but when it's something that you want, it puts you in this constant state of want. And that's why comparison is really, really killing you, is because it puts you in this state of want. And the universe, right? I'm going to get all university on you. The universe is looking at you in your state of want and saying, oh, that's where you want to be. Because you can manifest whatever you want, right? And so if you're in this constant state of wanting $1,000, the universe thinks that you love it there. I want you to think about that. The universe thinks that you love wanting $1,000 because that's all you ever fucking do. All you ever do is want $1,000, right? And because of that, the universe naturally thinks, well, I'm going to leave them right where they're at because that's where they want to be, right? But if you put yourself in the mindset that $1,000 is already here, you're just waiting for time to catch up. You're waiting for if you get paid on Friday, you're waiting for time to catch up. But that $1,000 is yours. It's said and done. It's written in the book for you, right? The universe is going to say, oh, they're really comfortable with having $1,000, and they're in a constant state of security with money. So where does the universe want to put you? In a constant state of security with money, right? Whatever that looks like in your life. Some of the people you're comparing yourself to, they've already figured that out, right? Or maybe they haven't. And you're going to tell me, well, what about the trust fund baby? What about Kim Kardashian's kid that blah, 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 blah. I get it. But remember, everything is relative. That child, right? Kim Kardashian's kid or whoever that's so rich, they don't even have to think about what's for breakfast. It's going to be made for them the moment they wake up. There is hurdles that they will face that will give them the same relative pain that you faced as well. And I don't want to relate it back to pain. I don't want anybody to go through pain. But I think that what I'm trying to nail home to you is that this comparison that you're constantly sitting within, this is solely during the time that everything looks amazing, right? You're only sitting in this comparison, this enviness when things look amazing. You're only beating yourself up when you're comparing yourself to someone that's in a better spot than you. Other than that, you're probably not even comparing yourself. And so if you want to do it once, you got to do it all the time, right? You got to compare yourself to their whole life. Find out where they were born, how they grew up. Was anybody beating their ass? Some of the adults in my life were beating my ass, right? That might have set me back a little bit, made me maybe a little bit less emotionally intelligent, made me a little bit more insecure. That set me back. And I don't own a home at 25 because I didn't know how to treat money when I was 18, because I didn't know how to treat anything when I was 18, because it was the first time I ever felt like I was free in my life, away from abuse. And so I put myself in a situation comparing myself to what people had around me. I'm like, damn, this is what it's like to be able to go to parties or whatever. And I was like, man, I've been comparing myself to these kids that lived with this freedom since high school. And like, I finally get to go do it. And I got off of my path for a little bit and I started trying to achieve other people's successes. I wanted a new car, just like someone I knew with a new car, because I finally had money. I joined the Army. I finally had a good paycheck. But maybe my path was set back a little bit by those hurdles. And so I had to go through this little learning phase. And now I'm back on course, and who knows what's in front of me. I don't know, but I have to remember when I look at someone that seems like they're in the same situation as me, and I start comparing myself to them, and I start wanting what they have, Now I'm in a constant state of want with the universe, so they're going to keep me there. I'm also choosing a specific portion in their timeline, right? Let's look at our little diagram. Imagine this in your head. You're looking ahead. You're on a 60-yard dash, and you're looking 25 yards in front of you saying, I want what they have. If you want what they have, you got to keep running. It's in front of you. It's in front of you. That new house is in front of you. But if you align yourself with the vibrations of constantly wanting, constantly comparing, never being satisfied because you're not living that person's life, then the universe is just going to assume that that's where you want to be. You got to start being satisfied with where you live. I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard the song, J. Cole's song, Love Yours. But he says, always going to be a bigger house, but long as the people in that motherfucker love you dearly. He says, always going to be a bitch that's better out there on the tours, but you ain't never going to be happy till you love yours. And he says a lot more to go along with it. But essentially, the purpose of the song and all those bars are just saying, like, if you're constantly in this state of comparison with others, you constantly want their girlfriend, you want their house, you want their car, you want all that stuff. That's all you're ever going to be, is someone that wants everything someone else has. And there's no telling whether you're actually even going to appreciate it or not. And so you got to get yourself out of this constant state of comparison because it's killing you. First half of this podcast, I wanted to yell at you for comparing yourself. Second half of this podcast, I'm going to go ahead and tell you how to get out of this state of comparison. The first thing you need to do is realize that whatever you want, you have. Okay. And this is tough for some people, right? You start telling this to people and they go, all right, well, I want $1 trillion. Am I ever going to get it? Right? I don't know. I can't tell you. But what I can tell you is that a mindset like that you're supposed to be rewarded immediately, right? And the real question is, once you have an attitude like that, like, oh, I can have whatever I want. I want a Lamborghini. Can I even take you seriously? Do you actually believe it though? Because I won't laugh at you if you want a Lamborghini and you believe it, that you already have it, that it's in your future, right? And do you want a Lamborghini because Justin Bieber has 4 of them, or do you want a Lamborghini because you want a Lamborghini? Because those are two different things. Comparing yourself to Justin Bieber and wanting what he has, well, you got to live the life he lived then. You got to go be a kid that made hit after hit after hit after hit, but also went through hurdle after hurdle after hurdle after hurdle. You got to go live his life, and you can't. You got to go walk his footsteps, but you won't. And so what I need you to understand is that you have to believe whatever you're putting out there, and it has to be unique to you. It's got to be super unique to you, and it's got to be given the knowledge that you have, right? It's got to be something that makes sense with where you're at in your life. So for me, I wanted to spend as much time with my daughter as possible. I really wanted that. A year ago, 9 months ago now, when my daughter was born, I wanted to be at home with her all the time. And I knew I had to go back to work. And man, it was killing me inside to know I had to go back to work. I worked a 9 to 5. I actually worked at Starbucks. Shout out Starbucks. It's a great place to work. I don't work there anymore, but I knew that I wanted to be at home with my daughter instead. And it wasn't because I went on TikTok and I saw Avery Woods, right? I don't follow this girl, but I've heard her name a lot because I live in Arizona. And I think she lives out here too, but she's a content creator, I think, around kids. I didn't go look at her and think, I want to do what she's doing. I didn't go look at Casey Neistat, a super famous YouTuber, and think, oh man, I want that. Or Mr. Beast, and oh man, I want that. I wanted it for my own specific reason. In order for me to want what they had, they would have had to have Laguna, and I would have had to know her, because I didn't want to stay at home with my kid, not just any kid. I wanted to stay at home with Laguna specifically. So I started to align myself with a little bit of vibrations that brought me at least closer to there. And I can tell you 9 months later, I'm a little bit closer. I don't work at Starbucks. I do work a day job, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's a little bit more flexible. It's with a friend of mine that owns a company. And it's going good for me, right? But I'm not quite satisfied yet. I'm still vibrating to the universe that I want to be at home with Laguna full time. But I'm not. But I caught myself comparing myself today. Why can't I have a new car like this person I just saw on social media? That's not in my path right now. Actually, when Laguna was born in September, just a few weeks before that, I did get a new car for Rachel. Me and her went together on a loan. We got her a new car. So I've already achieved that. But I wanted a new one because I saw it on social media. So I was in this state of comparison. That's why I'm passionate about this podcast right now, because I just caught myself in this this trap. And I got to remember that I got to align my vibrations with what's in store for me. And I really got to believe it, and I really got to want it. And it already exists. I'm already at home full time with Laguna, no doubt. I'm just waiting for time to catch up with me. And so I've got a little bit closer, and that's a good feeling. It's a little bit of reassurance that I was on the right path, that everything I'm saying, what I touch is gold. What I say will come to life. I remember when I first started this journey, I posted a video with a Lululemon diaper bag, and I said, man, it'd be so crazy if they ever saw this. This Father's Day, Lululemon sent me some clothes. They said, hey, you're an amazing dad. Thanks for all the advice. Thought you deserved a new outfit. It's not a campaign with them. I'm not getting paid to work with them. They didn't invite me to the headquarters in Seattle, but damn, it's at least something I talked about. And it turned to gold because I believed it a little bit. I said, damn, it'd be crazy if it happened. But then as time went on, I kind of thought they should be hitting me up anytime soon. And you might call it arrogance and cocky, but it's for the right reasons. I wanted that opportunity because one day I want to do a whole dad campaign with Lululemon because I love them. I love their brand. I love what they stand for. I love their missions. I love their values. And it would empower me. It would put me in position to be at home with Laguna more, because now I got a big brand like Lululemon endorsing me. Who knows what monetary gain might come from that, so that I could be at home with my daughter full time. This is something that is on my path all by myself, in my track, in my lane 5, lane 6, whatever lane I'm in. This is what's in front of me, and I got to keep running towards it. But if I would have got off track, if I would have left my lane to go explore that new car, how can I achieve that? I would have ran sideways instead of forward. I would have went horizontal instead of vertical. And maybe that campaign with Lululemon's 2 years away, but I'm going to go spend a year and a half chasing this car that I saw to my left. And maybe I'm running diagonal because maybe they bought that car 3 years ahead of me. And what I mean by that is they went through 3 years of the trials and tribulations that I'm set to go through. They've already went through, and they came out on the other side. But I won't allow myself to go through that tunnel of darkness and figure out what's on the other side because I'm too busy focused on their lane. I don't want to find out what's in my tunnel. I want to see the end of their tunnel. I want to run sideways before I hit my tunnel. I want to get diagonal, skip my tunnel, and get diagonal to in front of their tunnel, right? You're not going to achieve what you want to achieve skipping things. You got to go through your trials and your tribulations. So that's my first tip. You got to align yourself with what's really in store for you, and you got to believe it, and you got to want it, and it's got to be real. Because the universe knows no lie. The universe believes no lie, right? It'll sniff out bullshit in a second. So don't feed it. Next, you need to remember what I just told you about everybody on their path. And you need to remember that there's a lot of reality in every situation that you're not seeing. And so when really social media is the killer. Social media is what's making you guys compare yourself. I hate to be that guy. You might go to work and compare yourself to your boss too. I don't know. But social media is what's killing you. You got to be more humble, and you got to understand that what you see on social media is not real life. You can go ahead, and I'm not telling you to think negatively, but assume a little bit that you're not seeing the whole picture. It's important to understand that whatever you are chasing has a lot of realities outside of it, boxing its ass in, right? So whatever you're chasing, if I'm chasing that new house that I saw Sarah get, I want a new house just like Sarah got it. What you're not seeing is the time that she took to save up the money, because she aligned herself with what she really wanted. She's been on this path in the trenches, because guess what? You're looking at that post with her in front of her new house, but you weren't looking at her post 2 years ago when she was, putting on her story that she was having hamburger helper for the 5th night in a row. Like, damn, this is my favorite hamburger helper. I have it 5 times a week. You weren't looking at that story. You don't even remember that story. But she was sharing it because she was sitting down, saving money, putting her head down, focusing, because she wanted to go down her path. You don't want to go down your path, so you forgot about that story. Now you're looking at that post of her in front of your house and you're saying, oh, God, why don't I have that? Because you're worried about how Sarah got hers and you're not eating hamburger helper 5 nights a week. Analogy, of course, but there's a little bit of truth to it, probably. You got to remember that the realities that this girl Sarah went through to get that new house, that this girl went through to buy that new car, I'm not seeing all of it. And sometimes you're not seeing the good sides of it too. Maybe Sarah had a dad that passed away, God forbid, but maybe he left $500,000 for her so she could buy a house. Would you trade your dad for that house? Because if you want to compare yourself and you want what Sarah has, you got to go through what she went through. And sometimes it's not even dark like that. Sometimes Sarah just comes from money and people are just buying her houses left and right. And there's no work involved at all. And you're saying, Ricky, what about the people that don't have to work in life? What about Kylie Jenner that, sells a bullshit lip kit and she's a billionaire? What work did she have to do? Because you know what I mean? You might be looking at it like that, but remember that you're going to experience that same relative happiness. Humans aren't built on like a scale of material. God, this is good. I need to get a snippet of me saying this. Humans aren't built on a scale of material. And what I mean by that is a house with 40 rooms and 35 bathrooms, marble floors, pool inside, pool outside. When they put the down payment for that, $1 million, put a $5 million down payment for this $10 million house, and they get this burst of dopamine, it's relative to their situation. All this dopamine is going through them like, oh my God, I'm so rich and wealthy and blah, 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 blah. You will probably get that same level of dopamine release when you go ahead and you put, $20,000 down on a humble $300,000 home in a town that's, up and coming, but it's not quite there yet, but it's the only place you could afford a house. But you know what? You said, I saved up this 20 grand, worked tooth and nail for it. And I'm so excited to put this as a down payment so I can move into a home with my family. We're not built on a scale of material, right? You don't get a new tube of dopamine in your brain when you're a millionaire, right? Like, oh my God, this feels even better. No, you have the same release in that moment that those really rich uber 1%ers do. And the reason why you have that same release is because we're all built with the same desire. You want love, you want family, you want companionship, you want happiness, you want health. You know what I mean? And so health looks like being able to run 50 miles when you're 50 years old. And when you're running those 50 miles, it doesn't matter if you have $1 million home, if you have a $100,000 house, you just want health, right? You're no more healthy than the next guy to you. And there's a saying when it comes to lifting, I forgot the poem, but you can look it up. Just Google, like, 225 will always be 225. And it's this lifter, and he's like, man, all the things in life, you may have people lie to you. You have people at your work lie to you. You have people on the train lie to you, whatever. He's like, and the reason why I love the gym, health, let's call it, is 225 pounds when I walk in the gym, whether I'm a poor man or a rich man, will always be 225 pounds. And the reason that he says that is because no matter what you're comparing yourself to, we're all faced with the same realities when it comes down to like the bare bones things, right? So if we say that's, family, health, and security, you know what I mean? If someone breaks in $1 million home and tries to kill you, it's going to feel probably pretty fucking similar if someone breaks in a $100,000 home and tries to kill you, right? Security is compromised either way. But you comparing yourself, you looking at someone's $1 million home and thinking, God, if I just had that, this never would have happened to me. I promise. There's a moment in time when you would have faced something that would have given you the same emotion that person's facing too. And so in order to dig yourself out of this comparison hole, you got to understand that you can accept the realities that you're not seeing and know that this life is going to take all of us through nearly every emotion. I'm someone that has experienced grief really early on. I lost my brother when I was 16 years old and he was 18, and I'm definitely going to do an episode about grief. It's something that I battle with every day. It'll be 10 years this February, and I truly am not the same human. I believe someone new entered my body after I lost my brother because he was the most important thing in the world to me. And it's only got tougher, really, with welcoming Laguna and him not being able to meet her, and those things are tough. And although I might be jealous of some of the siblings I see around me and envious, it's unfortunate to say, but grief is in everyone's path. And although I don't understand the grief I had to go through, because my brother was so young, sometimes I think about the grief my mom had to go through, losing her son. And now I look at Laguna and I'm like, I'm not gonna get any deeper into what I'm trying to say, but you can kind of understand that grief looks different in a lot of ways. And it was on both of our paths and at very different times in our lives. And the comparison there is heavy, right? And so you got to accept the realities that a lot of what you're going through or what you've been through may not be ahead for some people's track, but they may face other things that are in the same light. And the same way that you're going to face some wins, you're going to capture these little surprise gifts and presents. And it's kind of like someone you hear about winning the lottery, all that money when it hits their account probably feels really good, but that same dopamine release, don't think in the way of material, right? I don't want you to think like I need that amount of money to feel that same amount of happiness, because you might feel that same amount of happiness when you meet your first grandchild, and maybe that person that won the lottery never met their grandchild, or maybe they're a shitty grandparent because they got so much money now they don't think about nothing else, and you might feel that crazy dopamine release when you meet your first grandchild. But remember, we don't think on levels of material. We think humans weren't built that way. We weren't built to think on levels of material, because when we were built, there wasn't $1 million mansions, and there wasn't hypercars, and there wasn't Mercedes Maybach. There was just you and me and the way that we walked through this crazy thing we called life, you know? And so I think it's important to understand that you're not seeing the whole picture. You got to remember that. You got to bring it to your core values, and it's going to bring you a little bit closer to who you really are. What do you really want, right? Because when you accept the reality that everyone's going to jump hurdles and everybody's going to have wins, you start to kind of think like, wait, who am I though? These are the hurdles I've been through. That'll help you define yourself. And these are the wins that I want to see in my life. And that'll help you define yourself a little bit more. Now you're kind of getting closer to who you really are, what you really want. And once you figure out what you really want, you put that out into the universe, you align yourself with those vibrations, and now you get what you really want. That's kind of my whole little spiel. And I think to cap this off, I just want to tell you, it turns out the person that bought a new car that I was comparing myself to, said person, their family owns 5 dealerships here. Probably a little bit easier to get a car. And I, quite honestly, I have no idea that person's situation. I've never met him. I was comparing myself to some random person on social media. I said, damn, that's so nice. And then I started to dig a little deeper, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm not really living that same situation. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's kind of my point, is I was looking ahead. I was looking 3.5 years, or I was looking 2 miles ahead on their track, and I wasn't paying attention to my 60-yard dash. I lost sight for a second there, and I failed to realize all the realities around each situation. I failed to realize maybe some of the trials and tribulations that person had to go through in order to achieve what they had in front of me. And I haven't gone through those trials and tribulations because I've been too busy. I was out here doing this and spending my money on coffee every single day. And, you know, I took Rachel to a week-long trip at an Airbnb, and that's where my money's going. It's not going to a new car. But I got to remember those realities before I start comparing myself and calling myself a bad guy, or thinking I'm such a failure, or starting to kill myself over the comparison, starting to hurt my inner and really tear myself down without seeing the whole picture. To close up the podcast, though, I do want to say, one, the title comparison is killing you. And even now what I just said, I felt a little irk in my heart when I said it, when I said, you know, I was comparing myself, I was killing myself. Like, if that struck you the wrong way, I just want to say, you know, I love you. And I wasn't trying to be insensitive when I used the term comparison is killing you. Like I said, I've dealt with grief. I've dealt with losing people. I can be pretty particular about some of the words that people use around me when it comes to killing and death. And I hope you understand I love you. I just had to say that because there's some heavy stuff happening out there in the world, and comparison isn't really killing you, but it's dragging down your vibrations. It's probably a better phrase. All right. I love you guys. I realize I should probably support my merch a little bit more. I got a link in all of my social media bios, but this is one of my shirts, you know, a little certified DILF. This is the back of it. Then I got a little certified verified stay-at-home mom hat. I think this is the flyest part of the drop. And then on the side, it says, I pushed for this. So for all you stay-at-home moms, people want to talk shit, you guys are the hardest workers I've ever met in my life. Rachel works her ass off. I'm practically a stay-at-home dad. I work my ass off. I didn't push for it, though. You guys did, so you get the tag. And then lastly, we just got a little revamp of the baby daddy hat. If you guys saw the originals, just says better than before. Baby daddy with the lightning bolt, because, you know, we're supercharged. But yeah, you can go shop the merch in my bio. I love you guys. Stop comparing yourself. Don't even listen to my podcast and think, man, what he's doing is so cool, because I promise I've been through some things that you wouldn't want to go through yourself. And that's what's lined me up to do what I'm doing today. And whatever you're doing is just as powerful in a different way. All right. I love you guys.